1, 2, 3, 4.
Springtime, 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 springtime.
It's my screen time too.
Springtime, springtime.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore. Stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Katie.
And I'm Deborah.
And I have two kids, ages 9 and 6.
And I have 3 kids who are 15, 11, and 11. Today, we are reviewing the best Christmas pageant ever. We're reviewing it because fall's over, pumpkin spice is out of stock, and the holiday season has begun. This movie was released very early for a holiday movie on November 8th, 2024. It's produced by Lionsgate, and it comes in at 1 hour and 39 minutes long, which is so close to my ideal length for a kids movie, although there were like 25 minutes of previews before the movie in the theater where I saw it, which is actually a pro preview in a movie theater, so I liked that. It's rated PG. The film is based on a children's novel written by Barbara Robinson in 1972, directed by Dallas Jenkins, written by Platt F. Clark, Darren McDaniel, and Ryan Swanson. And here's the plot summary according to IMDb. Nobody is ready for the mayhem and surprises that ensue when 6 of the worst youngsters disrupt the town's yearly Christmas performance.
Can I just disrupt our regularly scheduled order of programming and float my idea for why they released this movie so early?
Sure.
I would like to think that they want to have it out streaming by actual Christmas.
Oh, sure.
Because we'll get more into it, but I think this is kind of a perfect couch movie.
See, I figured it was just like how the holiday season is just like slowly creeping earlier and earlier every year. Like did I tell you this already? I shopped for Halloween candy like a few days before Halloween, and the Target lady was like, no, it's Christmas.
Oh.
In the seasonal area.
Were you like, can I just get some of the discounted Halloween candy from the back then? Because it's not like you sold all of it.
Oh, I found it.
Okay.
I found it. It wasn't discounted, though.
Oh. Well, they also know that they got you if you're doing it 2 days before Halloween. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, well, back down to business. Did you like it, Deborah?
I really liked it. How about you?
I'm so excited to talk about this. I liked it as well, and I can't wait to hear our differing reasons why. Why did you like it?
Okay, well, I had read the book when I was a kid, and so I didn't revisit the book, but there were some lines that were really, like, I could have recited practically by heart. I must have read that book a bunch of times. And I just thought it was, like, beautifully cast. I thought that child actors were wonderful. I loved, like, just the ambiance of the movie. I thought the end is very sweet and touching. I don't know. It hit all the right notes, and it's like about the nativity, but it's not hit you over the head with its like religious overtones, although there is a bit of a what Christmas is all about type of message to it.
I am so happy to hear you say that you have fond memories of the book from childhood, because I have been mentioning this to every other middle-aged grown-up in my life about like, oh, they made a new version of the best Christmas pageant ever. Don't you remember that property being everywhere as a child? Like, wasn't every school doing it as their school play? And didn't you read the book? And didn't you watch that TV movie with Fairuza Balk? And every other adult I have interacted with has given me the blankest of blank stares.
I didn't know there was a TV movie or like a script of it.
There was a TV movie, and there was like a very popular children's production version that was just happened to be staged everywhere in my local area growing up.
Funny.
So I just assumed that this was kind of a universal for people who I guess grew up in an area that was heavily Christian. But I think the thing that resonated with me is that it was just a small story. simply told. You know, it wasn't a ton of spectacle. It felt very easy to wrap your arms around, very relatable, ultimately inconsequential, but like pleasant and gave you that warm feeling. I also think, listeners, you can probably tell that Deborah and I are both like nominally Christian. We grew up in the Christian and or Catholic faith, and we've been inundated with new Christmas movies. I mean, thinking back at all the Christmas movies we've reviewed for this podcast, it's mostly Santa and gifts and greed that are the topics of the new holiday movies. So, like, if you're at all interested in imparting even a vaguely Christian message to your kids about, hey, why are we doing this whole Christmas thing? It was kind of nice to have a non-threatening, non-super proselytizing vehicle by which to do that.
Yep, totally.
Why potentially isn't this for grown-ups? What was there that you couldn't connect to just because it wasn't made for us? And I'll end this with a question mark. That's how we phrase it in every episode, but I don't think this wasn't also made for the grown-ups. So go ahead and speculate about why this might not be for grown-up viewers.
See, I can't really think of anything because like there's a little bit of physical humor, violent humor in the like Home Alone sort of vein, but it's not over the top. That would be maybe the only thing that's not for grown-ups. But I thought this was a really well done movie that appeals to every age group. Like I would even, what else did we just see that I would recommend for just anyone to go see with
The
with or
Wild
without
Robot?
kids? Yes. Yeah. This is one of those 4-quadrant movies, I guess.
I will say that you do have to go into it with a clear-eyed picture that it is a story about the true meaning of Christmas according to Christians. There's a fair bit of talk of God and Jesus, and that is the thrust of the movie. So, I mean, if that's not your jam, do not see this movie.
Right.
That is something
but Christmas is in the title.
Yeah.
Also.
Yes. But at the same time, Christmas is also in the title of a lot of those movies about the fat guy with the toys. So
Right. True.
so that's something to know going into it. If you are a grown up who currently has icky feelings about the Christian faith, use your discretion. All right. Why is this for grown ups?
It's quite a heartwarming story without being saccharine. And like I said earlier, the casting is just really well done. The young actor who plays Imogene, I think this is like a spectacular feat of directing because at times she looks like the roughest rebel, tough guy, kid, bully. And at other times, it's just like the camera angle and the light. She looks like an angel. I don't know. It just really appealed to me. And I think I saw it also at like a good, like the end of like a difficult week. And so it was like a perfect escape.
Yeah. It's also a period piece. But it's a period piece in the way that like kids who are watching it might not understand it as a period piece because it looks modern enough. But yet there are some delightful period touches that they don't explain. They don't explain them to children. Like you have a comical scene in which the mother and the daughter get tied up in the telephone cord. Which like, what is a telephone that looks like that? Like, what is a telephone cord? And also just the classic signifier of male exasperation that their wives have gone to work and that they have a whole scene in which the dad is gesticulating over a foil covered TV dinner.
Oh, and he's like, it smells like you're busy.
Which again is just such a signifier that would go over any kid's head, but was like a pretty delightful nod to grown-ups, I thought.
Yeah.
All right, you talked a little bit about the casting of the children, and I just have to echo that as we get into the weeds a little bit. This whole story hinges on the two characters of Imogene and Beth and their relationship towards one another, and then also the characters of Imogene's brothers and sisters, a little bit less so. And man, did they knock it out of the park with those kids. I thought all
Yeah.
of them to a one was just wonderful.
Hmm.
And it's Judy Greer, who loyal listeners of this podcast might remember from our review of the PBS show Let's Go Luna.
She's so great. And I love the chemistry or on-screen rapport between her and Pete Holmes, who plays the dad. Did you watch Pete Holmes's HBO show?
I didn't. I'm so not familiar with him. I mean, I recognize his name. I know he's like a presence in the comedy world, but he's just a
Hmm.
blind spot for me.
He's really funny, and his whole shtick is kind of like, I'm a comedian, but I look like a youth pastor.
So he was really steering into the skid on this one.
Yes. One standout who's kind of a minor character for me was the librarian. When the kids go to the library and they like describe they want the book about the baby Jesus, and she's like, "You mean the Bible?" And then she gets them a Bible, and then they ask for one with pictures, and she kind of like gives this big exasperated like stomp off. And I was like, "Oh no. She's a bad librarian." And then she comes back with picture
Yeah.
versions of the Bible. I don't know. I loved her character.
I mean, you know, I love the library scene too. And speaking of period elements that weren't explained away for the children, long scene with a card catalog, and it was just delightful to our little librarian hearts.
Hmm.
Did you have any thoughts on the writing?
Yes, just because like I want to problem solve this family, and like it's six kids who like clearly live in extreme poverty with parents who aren't able to care for them. And the best the town can do is like deliver a Christmas ham.
Yeah, I had a long discussion with my husband, with Kevin, about this. And I'm not throwing him under the bus because I think he made some very valid points. And that was his biggest gripe. He's like, so this movie is all about how important it is to remember the meaning of Christmas and to be a good Christian. And yet you don't see the town really doing anything for these kids other than like tearing up at the Christmas pageant. So
Right.
he was really frustrated. Whereas, like, I was already feeling charitable towards the property because of my history with it. Was like,
Hmm.
no, it was meant to be like their inroad into the community. And the end of the movie is actually like the beginning of their relationship with the community. And you get the sense that they're really going to be embraced. And then maybe things will improve for them. But he did not get that message at all and was also very frustrated. Like, oh, you throw a ham at them once a year. You see where they live. It's not like you were unaware of these conditions. And yet, dot, 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 all you do is complain about them.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they need to be put in like some kind of emergency foster care and get to talk to the school counselor and have somebody buy them clothes and shoes that fit and make them take showers. But it's not that kind of a movie.
Again, it's just a very small story about one
Yeah.
specific moment in the life of this town. And while I can see that as being frustrating for not addressing all these other areas, I just found the decision to focus on something so specific to be kind of pleasant. And I didn't, it was nice to not have all the spectacle of like, oh, the world's ending or things are blowing up or like there's a
Hmm.
major crime taking place or someone's been kidnapped. No.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's like when you're a kid and you read like The Boxcar Children, you can really get fully taken into the story of like how these kids are living independently, and it's very imaginatively aspirational. And I felt about this the same way. Like from a child's perspective, it's really fun to like put yourself in the shoes of like Imogene, who is like essentially the caretaker for this family of hooligans, and she's just a child and it's not really fair for her. But as an adult, it's hard to like not problem solve for the social problems that this family like represents. But that's not the point of the film.
Yeah, and maybe it just speaks to my naivete that I was like, great, seems like things are turning around. I will choose to believe that and leave this movie feeling happy.
No, I think that's how you're supposed to watch the film because it's like entertainment. It's an escape. It's not a documentary. It's not like a this is how we solve the world type of thing.
Kevin definitely wanted more of a comeuppance for the mean church ladies at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted a little revenge, and I can see that too.
Yeah, I didn't really care for the scene where Judy Greer's character is like, thank you to the mom who's like, good job. She should have been like, I don't care what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, that was hard. To a certain extent, the pairing of the story of the children, which is primarily about the relationship between Beth and the Herdmans,
Mm-hmm.
and the story of Judy Greer's character, the mom, struggling to put on the Christmas pageant and gain some sort of respect within the community, that the balance wasn't always great,
Mm-hmm.
is my criticism there. Because,
Yeah.
and again, you're right. I didn't revisit the book or anything, but like, I don't remember any of that grown up stuff being part of the text. Do you?
No, I don't. I don't. Oh, and I'd put this in the category also of the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler for like escapism through like a really fun fantasy that would never happen in real life, but as a kid, it's like glorious to imagine yourself living that.
Yeah, like you're capable of all this independence and there's none of the scariness that would come along
Yes.
with it. Yeah,
Right.
I like that. Any thoughts on the music? Traditional Christmas hymns? Did it put you in the spirit?
They perfectly captured the sound of an out of town or like a small town, low budget church's piano. It was like perfectly out of tune and like old sounding, like rickety upright. I thought that was perfect.
Oh,
I wanted more music.
yeah. Well, if we're going to appropriately get in the holiday season, it is time for those Christmas carols.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really do anything to beef up. They didn't pull a pitch perfect with the children's choir in the pageant. They were a children's
Mm-hmm.
choir that sounded like a children's choir, so that was
Right.
nice. Any thoughts on the structure? We've been kind of bouncing around this a little bit, but anything specific to that?
I thought it was really well done. I want to reread the book at some point, but I thought, I mean, it gives you the tension, like you're not sure if they're really going to pull off the pageant. You're not sure if Imogene is going to show up. You've said small story, and the stakes feel perfectly suited to that small story.
Yeah. How did you feel? And I don't think it's a spoiler because there is a narrator throughout. How did you feel about closing the movie with a scene of Beth as the narrator as opposed to something involving any of the Herdmans?
Oh, now that you bring it up, I don't know if I liked that or not. While I was watching the movie, it seemed fine and natural, though.
That was the moment where I was like, we're making the story about you, Beth? The story is about these children who like learned that they can have a place in the community too and that their roles have value, and like you're making it about you. I I did not care for that framing device. And again, I don't remember if it was a part of the original text or not, but that kind of left me with a negative vibe at the end. Any thoughts on the look of the movie?
It was like, especially at the end in the church, like it's really nicely dark and cozy feeling, which is not usually what we get in holiday films. Usually we get a lot of bright colors and over the top scenes of Christmas decorations. And this was really, I mean, it captured the feeling of like going to like a midnight mass where they light the candles, and it's really focused on the Christmas feeling and not the spectacle.
Yes. Again, with that lack of spectacle that I so appreciated.
All right, let's talk about whether or not this is good for kids. In your opinion, what makes this good or okay for kids to watch?
From my particular perspective, as someone who every Christmas I'm like, wait, do my kids know who Jesus is? Um, as I mentioned up front, am really glad to have a movie I can share with them that does focus on the, from our perspective, true meaning of Christmas in a way that is not offensive. So I think from our particular cultural perspective, that is something that makes this good for kids. I
Mm-hmm.
also really, really, more and more so every day, I so appreciate movies that emphasize the importance of kindness. And it seems like
Mm-hmm.
such a simple and like stupid message that should be in every kids movie. And to some extent it is, but I really think in a lot of instances we don't make that explicit enough for
Mm-hmm.
kids to really feel.
Yeah.
I saw this in the theater with both of my kids, and we had a loud outburst of my 6-year-old during a quiet moment. So, small spoiler, there's this moment when the Herdman children appear and start a very one sided snowball fight. And there's this great shot at the beginning of all of them standing in a row with like their elbows cocked back and snowballs in all of their hands. And it was fairly quiet in the theater. And my youngest just goes, "The Herdmans." And everyone in that theater just laughed.
That's cute.
So it was good to know that they were engaged and enjoying it for the most part.
Nice. That's great. I thought it was good for kids also for all the reasons that you mentioned. Sorry. I don't have anything to add. That was good.
Oh, thank you.
Um, what do you think makes this inappropriate or otherwise bad for kids at all?
I hate to keep harping on it, but again, like if you're not in the Christmas for the God element, just see a different Christmas movie about Santa. Maybe check out Claus on Netflix, which we really liked,
Mm-hmm.
for a plug for an animated movie about Santa that is also very sweet.
Yeah. I thought some of the humor is dated because it's a book that was written in the 1970s. Like there's some sexist stuff. There's a bad joke about a Chinese baby.
Oh, because they can't use the Chinese baby for the baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Um, Somebody in the theater I was in laughed like way too loud at that joke. But that goes with like any movie, really. There's going to be some any period piece that's there's going to be some dated humor, but that is actually kind of good because then it opens up conversations about like what people thought in the olden days and what we think now.
Right. You're right. All right. Any other thoughts on the best Christmas pageant ever?
I am ready to move on to our evergreen questions.
Let's do it. What show or movie for grown-ups did this make you think of?
It made me think of Synecdoche, New York.
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Yes.
I've never
It's an
seen it.
older movie, but it's about this actor who like puts on a show and it's very elaborate. But it is also set on the East Coast and has that sort of dim light. Not, I wouldn't say dark, but cozy feel to it.
I like that.
Yeah. How about you?
I went the other way and it made me think of a very splashy television show that only lasted a season, if that, a long time ago, like pre-kids, called GCB. I've probably mentioned it on the podcast before. Takes
I
place
never
in
watched it though.
It takes place in Dallas, and it's about this woman moving back to her hometown, like a very Tony area of Dallas, and interacting with all these wealthy people who live in this bubble but are also nominally Christian. So like they keep doing awful things and then talking about how it's the way Jesus would want it. So it was a very funny show, and I'm sad that it didn't get more traction and didn't stay on. Were you able to cast the gritty HBO reboot?
Okay, I would make this a musical, a full musical, and I would cast Jenny Lewis, just straight up typecasting because she's got that long red hair and that Herdman look of a scrappy redhead. And then I would cast the guys from Atlanta as her brothers because
Okay.
they have that like they're trying to put on like a tough guy exterior, but they're really all soft, vulnerable little boys inside.
Oh.
I think they would make a great, like, we don't want these people at our church, but then actually we do want these people in our church. Everybody loves them. Kind of like turnaround, I think.
I like that. I only cast mom and dad. And looking at Judy Greer in this movie, I thought two things. I thought Judy Greer does so much voice work. I feel like I see a lot less of her than I would like. And then I was thinking of her past acting roles. And I was reminded of her character on 13 Going on 30, which
Oh.
is like the grown up mean girl, like very spiky, very shallow, very cutting in all of her remarks. So like you were saying, you kind of wish the mom would have heaped some scorn on these church ladies for doubting her so much. I wouldn't mind a take on this that has mom and dad being a little cattier, which I know is not in the Christian spirit, but whatever. We're recasting. So I would keep Judy Greer, but I would be like, turn the snark back on, please. And then just because I don't know, I wasn't as familiar with Pete Holmes, I swapped him out with Nat Faxon, who is also a comedian actor that I really enjoy.
Nice.
Do you think it was better when we were kids?
I mean, we had the book. I would have loved this movie when I was a kid, though.
Same.
So, no. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we had that TV movie, but it was back in the days when, like, TV movies, you had to catch them and you had to record them on your VHS, and maybe they'd get taped over and there were commercials and blah, blah, blah. So I'm happy to have this introduced into the Christmas canon for sure. Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
I would, but I'm hoping, like you said, that it's streaming by Christmas. I think it would be fun to watch at the actual holidays.
I think this would be a great, like, on the couch wrapping gifts, maybe with a fire going, like, just like quiet, early, but dark outside because it's winter thing to have on the screen. So, I mean, I don't do my gift wrapping with my kids around, so I guess that would require me to be watching it alone.
Right.
How about ratings?
4.5?
All right, this feels like a return to form. Because I'm like, I recognize that it might not be for everyone. So that makes it really hard to rate because it was for me and it was, I think, for my kids, but it was obviously not for my husband. So does that mean I give an objective rating and I say like 3.5? Or do I say 4.5 because I liked it so much? So maybe I'll just say 4 with the caveat that it was for me. It may not be for everyone.
Fair.
See it or skip it.
See it.
Yeah, see it. Welcome the holiday season.
Thanks for listening to our review of the best Christmas pageant ever. Next week, we'll be back with a conversation about screen time in the news. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to one friend you think would enjoy it too, so that we can grow our community of parents for sanity in screen time. If you don't want to miss our up-to-the-minute thoughts about screen time, you can subscribe to updates at our website, myscreentime2.com. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to, and sometimes because we like to. Bye!
Bye!
Screen time, screen time, screen time.